How's it going, everyone? Welcome back. Hope everyone is having a lovely day. So, unfortunately, it is draft talk season for Cincinnati Bengals fans here. A little early, as playoffs just getting started here. But nonetheless, it is always exciting, always enjoyable to kind of siphon through the draft, siphon through the strategies, and see what is gonna happen here. And, we've seen some Bengals draft history talked about. We've seen the Bengals changing their strategy in the draft, saying, hey, how are they doing rounds 4 to 7? You need to steal some guys rounds 4 to 7, rounds 3 to 7. And, is there some credibility to that? Do the Bengals need to kind of consider, some differences here? I mean, over the Zach Taylor era, so since 2019, the players they've drafted that have started meaningful games at all, a meaningful amount of games, we should say, is Akeem Davis-Gaither, Cordell Volson, Money Mac. And considering you always take a kicker late, you say Cordell Volson, Akeem Davis-Gaither. So in 5 years, 2030, 22, 21, 29, in 5 years, the Bengals have drafted 2 players that have been starters for this football team, and in that case, impactful players for this football team in the Zach Taylor era. And it's kind of an extreme because they won a couple championships. But then you look and flip it to the Chiefs, and the Chiefs in that time, if you want to do some comparisons, they've had 5 players. Trey Smith, Noah Gray, Isaiah Pacheco, L'Jarius Sneed, Michael Pana. The 5 guys there still, seeing a lot of good, meaningful snaps, playing some good ball over in Kansas City. And that was with them, was it 2019? They didn't have a 4th, 5th round pick as well. So really doing that in 4 years, not including the 6. I guess you have to include the 6. But looking back and saying that it was a championship team, but you look back and say, hey, there is some room for improvement here. And it is a big deal. That's 3 starting players you drafted that you don't have to pay in free agency. That leaves you flexibility elsewhere. And that, you consider, again, offensive linemen. You can draft a couple off. That's where the Chiefs are really winning. They've been drafting offensive linemen really well. And it's still allowing Patrick Mahomes to this day to stand back there for 3 seconds and do whatever he wants with the football. But that's where you kind of go back with the Bengals and say, hey, should they consider changing things? Because here's the draft strategy for the Bengals. We kind of know in the Zach Taylor era, we're going best possible available. We're not going to reach for a specific position. We're going to whatever's left on the board. And it's worked for them, and it's kind of hurt them in some situations. Because here's the thing, like you went into day 2 with the Joe Burrow season, and it was like, you got to protect this guy. You got to protect him. You got to protect him. But they left T freaking Higgins on the board in the 2nd round. You couldn't pass that up. I'm as big as trenches as possible. I remember day 2 came around and said, there's no way they skip out on T Higgins. That guy slid for no reason. The injuries maybe, but that guy should not have been sliding. That was an excellent pick. And there are situations like that happen that fall into your lap and say, okay, we got to do that. But there's also situations where you're like, this guy's best possible position, just a little bit above our position of need. And you start to wonder, and this is my question. I am not inside an organization. But my question is, how are the resources being allocated when you draft best possible available opposed to specific positions? Because if you're a Bengals team or an organization, and I don't want to sound crazy, I'd be throwing 50% of them sources in the trenches. Maybe a little less, maybe 40. But it's that important of a position to get right. And it's a position the Bengals have struggled to get right in the draft. And the more you can scout it, the more you can understand the position, the more you see these players coming up and coming through. Even if it feels like it's a slight reach, to you it's not. To you, that's your guy. Opposed to saying, well, the safety fell in our lap, or well, an edge rusher that we thought was okay, but he wasn't the worst, but wasn't the best. But, hopefully it'll figure it out. And again, I love going trenches. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, in general, compared to saying, hey, the Bengals come in with a draft board of 20 tight ends, 20 wide receivers, 20 offensive linemen, or they come in and say, we should have a list of about 45, 45 of these, 20 of these, and so forth. Just like last season, the Bengals didn't draft a tight end. And that was the question. It's like, did they want a tight end? Did they think they was reaching for, wait for it, Sam Laporta? So they went Miles Murphy? Because I think we can say which would have been a better pick in hindsight here. And it's interesting to me, to say the least. Because I think if you're Bengals, you're the Bengals, that's what you should be trying to do, especially a team that cannot run the football. They can't run the football, and they can't, consistently get pressure on the quarterback. They haven't drafted pass rushers. You want to allocate as much resources as possible to those 2 positions. And then you say, hey, if they can hit I think that was, again, beauty of the Chiefs doing it late. Yeah, if they can hit on a late running back, if they can hit on a late trenches guy, just one guy in the trenches that can get some pass rush going. Maybe he's an excellent defensive tackle, and then you can use another one that your 18th overall, is it 18th overall pick on a stud in the trenches. All of a sudden, you just added two big cogs to that position, and things start to move a little bit more smoothly. Where you can look around in other areas, maybe second round, third round. There's certain areas in a draft where you feel more comfortable saying, if a guy falls to us, he falls to us. But I don't imagine it changes for the Bengals. I think it's an interesting idea, though, an interesting perspective to see. Would that help the Bengals? Would it not help the Bengals? Because again, they are. You got to give them credit where credit's due. They are doing a really good job drafting the first 3 rounds for the most part. We'll see though. Love y'all's thoughts. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.